There is a tension going on in our first reading today between Abraham and his nephew Lot. It had to do with a conflict among their herdsmen. Medyo yumayaman na sila, dumadami ang kanilang mga tupa. But the pasture was becoming limited, and so they were having conflicts. And so Abraham spoke heart to heart with his nephew. Sabi niya, huwag tayo mag-away. Let us define our territorial boundaries so that we can prevent conflicts like these between our herdsmen from happening again. Pamilya tayo. Kaya i-define na lang natin our territory. If you go to the right, I will go to the left. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. He was very kind, si Abraham. Very magnanimous to his nephew. But on the other hand, his nephew Lot had only his self-interest in mind. Siyempre, pinapili siya, and he chose what to him was the better part. The greener pasture. He did not realize that the place he had chosen would be punished by God with fire and brimstone, and that turns out to be Sodom and Gomorrah. In fact, the author is saying by way of parenthetical remark, sabi niya, this was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, the very place that had been chosen by Lot. Yun ang gusto niya. You remember the saying, be careful what you ask for. That's what he asked for, and he got it. The motif of choosing wisely is also consistent with our gospel today. Jesus says, do not throw what is holy to the dogs, or do not give pearls to the swine. Bakit? They don't know what they are worth. And Jesus is just using this as an analogy. He's not talking about dogs and swine. He's talking about people. People who have not been reared with a proper sense of values. Kapag walang proper sense of values yung tao, hindi nila pahahalagan yung tunay na mahalaga. They will have no appreciation for what is holy or what is truly valuable. Nowadays, this is supposed to be addressed in schools by subjects called values education or religious education. And it's supposed to include the formation of the conscience. The lack of proper values and the dysfunction of conscience would show in the way people behave, the way they conduct themselves, even in the way they elect leaders, and the kind of leaders that they choose, or in the way they react to social issues or to public opinion. Talaga namang may mga tao who cannot even distinguish between authenticity and falsehood. Just as there are people who are plainly stupid or gullible, madaling malinlang. There are those who tend to think of the easy way as the best way. People who want quick results, shortcuts, patrons who will decide for them, persons who have no regard for human lives or human rights. They don't want the narrow gate that Jesus is talking about in today's gospel. They avoid trials and difficulties all the time. Merong isang interesting story, a Jewish story, tungkol sa dalawang magkapatid, two brothers who inherited a piece of land from their father. One was married, the other one was single and quite advanced in years already. Since they had equal rights as children of their parents, they decided together to work on the land and to subtract the cost of production and just divide equally between the two of them the harvest at the end of the harvest season. Minsan, isang araw, they had a big harvest. The single one, yung kapatid na hindi nag-asawa, he said to himself, I do not feel good about getting exactly the same share of the harvest as my older brother, as my brother who has a family. May pamilya siya, may anak siya. But I know he's going to object to the idea of letting him get a bigger share because we have equal rights as heirs to our father. Maybe, ito yung decision niya, tonight, I will get 10 sacks of grains and quietly deliver it to the barn na hindi nalalaman ng kapatid without the brother knowing it. And he did as he planned it. Unknown to him, yung kapatid niyang may asawa, his married brother, was thinking the same thing. Siya rin hindi makatulog. And he was saying to himself, I should have volunteered to give the bigger share of the harvest to my brother. He is not married. He has no children. Who will look after him in his old age? He might not have enough savings to be able to seek shelter in a retirement home. But I know, sabi niya, he will object to this idea because he is such a thoughtful brother. I think I will just silently transfer 10 sacks of grains to his barn. Parehong-pareho sila nag-iisip to give to the other. And so, one brother that night delivered 10 sacks of grains. And the other brother delivered 10 sacks of grain, unknown to each other. The following day, they're surprised because their grains had not changed at all. Hindi nabawasan. And so they did it again. One brother delivered 10 sacks, the other brother delivered 10 sacks. The following day, pareho na naman. Because they did not know what the other was doing. Until one night, they delivered at the same time. And they bumped on each other on the way. And they realized that they were doing exactly the same thing out of sheer thoughtfulness and consideration for each other. The story ends this way. Under the bright moonlight, the two brothers embraced each other, and God in heaven smiled at them because they truly behaved like His children. This is how things go when people's hearts are in the right places, when they are raised with a good sense of values, and when their consciences are well formed right from their families.